This is Laura Ollinger from the Positively Healthy Mom, and welcome to the Spanglish World and her network on Zingo channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo app on your iOS or Android device. And while you download, be sure to leave a comment or give a rating. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku, and Roku sticks, and also on Smart TVs 2016 moving forward. So today I am so excited to welcome Corinne Zuleger. She's going to be my guest today, and Corinne and I have known each other for several years now. We are both certified through the Neuroencoding Institute, and we are both elite neuroencoding specialists. However, I had the great fortune of getting to meet her in person about a year ago out in Las Vegas at a conference, and we just completely connected. We bonded. We sat by each other at dinner. We talked all night. And so today I'm so excited to bring her to the Positively Healthy Mom audience. So Corinne, say hello to everyone.
Hello, I'm excited to be here, Laura, and to be of service for your community. It's very exciting.
Yay, awesome. Okay, so we're just going to dive right in. We are not going to waste any time. So Corinne, I want you to kind of explain to the audience, what got you kind of doing what you're doing now. So in other words, what was your personal journey? I know personally that you've had a lot of loss. You've, had some struggles with mental health things. You have a whole story. So if we were to just kind of give the audience a summary, what would that be so they can just get an understanding of who you are?
Let's see. When our youngest was like 2, I had a nervous breakdown, which really was I was thinking about suicide. I couldn't figure out why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I didn't really know what was happening to me. And with some traditional therapy, some medication, I got kind of set on my path. But after a period of time of going through that therapy, I was like, I think I'm ready for something different. And I was introduced to the world of life coaching. I hired my first life coach and began working with her. Loved the results I was getting with her and the method that she was using to coach me.
Oh, awesome.
So I actually learned the technique, went and received us in that technique that she was using as well, which accesses the subconscious. After losing my dad and my brother both to substances, then it sent me kind of on a whole other path of trying to understand why people suffer from addiction. Why do some from a family have addictions to alcohol and drugs? And maybe, other people in the family don't have outward addictions. But then I started to learn even more about addiction, and it can look so much more, not just drugs and alcohol, but it could be food, it could be gambling, it could be shopping, so there's other dynamics to it. And then I really dove into the world of understanding adverse childhood experiences, which is early childhood trauma during those first 18 years of life, and specifically those first 8 years of life. So,
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I actually did not know that part about you, the early childhood part. So basically what you're saying is, you were a regular mom, you had 3 kids, and when you had your youngest who was 2 years old, you just had this kind of like mental breakdown. And I'm honestly, curious about, now after you've done all this work, I'm sure you can like trace back like what caused that. But like, at the time, what did you think was causing that? Did you have any idea?
Yeah. Well, at that time, I thought everything was my husband's fault. That projection of blame was, he wasn't around enough. He was working all the time. I was the one home with the kids. I had all these perceived stresses and pressures.
Mm,
And once I started to unpack it, what it really was, a lot of it was due to residual from my childhood
okay.
and wearing masks. So, like, as a woman and as a mom, the expectation that what a mom looks like, what does a good mom look like? A good mom, my perception of that was that she hangs all the laundry on the line. She makes everything from scratch. She's on Pinterest. She's doing all these great, fabulous, crafty things with her kids. And the reality of it is that wasn't me. I am an outdoors girl. And once I was able to turn that around with the kids, I love being outside. My kids all love to be outside. They're all very active.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not Martha Stewart.
Oh,
Listen,
guess what? You're not?
no.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Guess what? I'm not
Yeah.
Martha Stewart either. I mean, if we could all
Yeah.
just let go of that expectation, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult. I find that, that kind of mentality comes from a little bit of an older generation, and that's gotten passed
Hmm.
down. And I have several acquaintances and friends who have a mother-in-law or a mother or someone in their life. Maybe they had a grandmother who had that perfectionist attitude, and then they compare themselves and they know
Hmm.
they don't measure up, and it's not fair. I'm like, what is the measurement stick that
Hmm.
you're using that you're so unhappy? Because
Hmm.
I see my friends and I think they're fantastic. I think they're amazing. They're awesome
Yeah.
moms, but they don't feel good enough because they're using this old-fashioned measurement tool that doesn't even make sense. Does that resonate with you?
Hmm. Oh, it does, it does, and it was more you're right, the generation, like, I grew up in the generation where the commercial was Angelique perfume, so it was like, "I can bring home the bacon, fried up in a pan, and never let you forget you're a man because 'cause I'm a woman," right? So, basically, the message I was receiving was, "I can do all the things.
Mhm.
I can do it all, and I can do it all on my own," and so I never used my voice, I didn't ask anybody for help because it was like, "Well, I'm supposed to be able to do all of this
Mhm.
myself." It was
Yeah.
3 kids, 3 dogs, a cat, it was craziness, and then, when our youngest was 7, I went back to work, and so it was, like,
Oh, wow.
still, and then all of their activities and all the things, right? So, yeah, just so much,
Yeah.
and I wasn't asking for help.
Yes. Okay. Well, you're literally the perfect person to have in this audience because this is who I'm talking to. I'm talking to stay at
Mhm,
home moms, but I'm also talking to moms who work outside of the home in a formal sense.
mhm,
We are all working moms. It doesn't
mhm.
matter if it's
Oh, yes.
employment or technically
Yeah.
unemployment. We're all working our butts off and we're all tired. We're exhausted and we're comparing ourselves.
Mhm,
And it just is, it's frustrating. So,
mhm,
now as a coach, so you are a transformational and mindset life coach. How do you help
mhm.
these women who are in this position when you come across women who kind of like what we just described?
Well, the first thing that we work with
Mhm.
is self-love. We work with the way we talk to ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves when we look in the mirror,
Mhm.
and that is my starting point. There's so much emphasis as a mother, and even just as a woman, that to loving others,
Mhm.
and I think that's fantastic because for me, love is the answer to everything,
Mhm.
and it starts here,
Mhm.
right here. When I
Mhm.
look in the mirror, can I look in the mirror and can I say, I love you?
Mhm.
And look in my eyes and honestly feel it because I can remember the first time I did it, I couldn't make eye contact with myself. And
Mhm.
that's where I start, and then the little voices in my head. So, if I am saying that, is the little voice in my head telling me, oh, yeah, you don't mean that, and so really understanding that the words that I use when I talk to myself matter.
Mhm.
How I treat myself matters. And when we are, because we're always modeling it,
Oh, I
whether
know.
it be our own kids, someone
Mhm.
else's kids, they're watching us. So if I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I look disgusting in this outfit, or my hair looks like crap, or,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
that's what they take on too, right? Or if
Mhm.
I think, gosh, I'm ugly.
Mhm.
Well, our babies, they're part of us. And I can't tell you how many people tell me my middle child looks just like me. And if I think I'm ugly,
Right.
what am I setting her up for then,
Mhm.
right? So there's a lot that feeds into the self-love portion and
Mhm.
really being able to love yourself, talk nice to yourself, and feel it and believe it, not create a cognitive dissonance. Because I think that's important too, right? We can like that whole fake it till you make it kind of
Yeah.
thing isn't necessarily a really good way to approach things. But so yeah, just starting with the self-love, we start there, working on our I am, our identities, and
Mm.
then it just depends because I don't believe in cookie cutter people.
Right.
So I use my own recipe, like I have
Mhm.
many different tools and
Mhm.
whatever each person needs. I just kind of start putting the tools together and come up with the right programming for that particular person when we're doing one-on-one coaching.
That sounds awesome. I so agree with you starting with the self-love portion and then that identity aspect, because that's kind of
Hmm.
like we have to go from the inside out, and that's where it starts. And the
Hmm.
expression, you have to put your oxygen mask on first, like that would be the part that like you
Yeah.
have to feed into yourself. So I completely agree with that. The other thing I know that you are passionate about talking about, which I am as well, is just kind of emotions, like understanding
Hmm.
emotions, regulating emotions, being in touch with them, like being
Yeah.
authentic with them. Like you just said, you don't want cognitive dissonance. Like, like how do you kind of come to
Hmm.
terms with what you're really feeling? Because I don't want to jump ahead, but like I know that that is part of what like leads into addiction, that some of your family members dealt with
Hmm.
when they're burying or stuffing such painful emotions that they can't like figure out what to do with, and so they have
Hmm.
to avoid, and they go to substances, or what you said earlier, it could be anything, it could be food, it could be social media, it could be
Hmm.
sex, anything, right, just to like avoid.
Right.
So like, what is your best advice for someone who comes to you and they're like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know where to start? Like, what is the basics about how to like kind of come to terms with your emotions?
I think with an emotion is really allowing ourselves to feel it. There can be a lot of chatter about, oh, like this is a bad emotion.
Hmm.
All emotions are a record of the past,
Mm.
and each emotion is here to teach us something, right? It comes up and out for a reason.
Hmm.
So, we call it a trigger, right? Something triggers you. And let's say for me, I'm very sensitive. So I easily triggered to tears, and it drove my dad bananas.
Mm.
But I started to get really curious as to like, why does this make me cry? Why? I mean, I would cry when I was frustrated and angry
Hmm. Hmm.
too. So understanding like what happened before that,
Yeah.
what was the trigger? What
Hmm.
what just happened? Because, okay, so let's say somebody did something to me. The question becomes, what did I make it mean about me?
Right.
Right. So when I'm looking at working with people and understanding nothing anybody else does is about you, period.
So true.
Everything that people do is we are, we're in our own bubble and we're going
Hmm.
about things. And so if I'm not nice to the cashier, it has nothing to do with the cashier and has everything to do with me,
It's
and so again, modeling, you know,
what
what am I modeling?
exactly, and that's what I teach my
Mhm,
teenage clients and my own kids, where
mhm,
they're all in this age where a lot is happening with the kids around them, their peers,
mhm,
and they don't know what to do with that information. They're like, "Oh, I got
mhm,
spoken to this way, I got called this word or this name, I got treated like this." And what I explained to all of them is that this is a reflection of them, who they are, what
mhm,
is inside of them, what they're feeling. And if they're feeling
mhm.
pain, they're going to put the pain out, right? If they're feeling happy, they're
Yes.
going to put the happy out, right? It's like whatever is
Mhm,
inside is going to come out one way or another. It's like squeezing an orange,
mhm,
we have some mentors, Kay and Shy. They always say, if you squeeze an orange, what's going to come out? Well, orange juice, but it's like, well, it depends what's
mhm,
inside. So, I think that's so important what you're saying
mhm,
just about, really feeling them. And I have to say, from my own personal experience, that was hard for me. I didn't do that until I was an adult.
mhm.
I don't think I really learned how to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, until I
Mhm.
went through my own
Same.
personal journey, and I really started to feel, so much more connected with myself. That mind-body connection, it sounds so cliche, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
finally understood, like, what it felt like to feel certain things and not push them or
Mhm.
avoid them or dodge them or feel uncomfortable or even project them onto others, like we just talked about.
Right. Yeah, and in my coaching, I like to use, the 4 circles, um, So making sure that we are taking care of the physical body,
Mhm.
right? We're taking care of the emotional body, taking care of the social body, right? Our connections, and then the spiritual connection.
Mhm.
For me, it doesn't matter to me what you call it, as long as you know and have your own personal connection to the generative force that, are the creator. I, I feel like that's missing a lot in
Mm.
people's lives, right? So it's like driving around on a really bad flat or a blowout, so they got the three wheels of the car,
Mhm.
and they're trying to drive around on it, and the frame
Mm.
is getting wrecked because, they're driving around on just three tires. And I use the car analogy quite a bit because um, we tend to, as moms, a lot of times we're driving around with really low air on all four tires,
Yeah.
because we're serving in so many different areas and trying to juggle all of the things and not asking for the help, not
Mhm.
receiving the help, right? We're just not
Mhm.
we're afraid to use our voice because it might make us appear weak. Um,
Mm.
and just it, with that philosophy, right? Making sure that people understand what you were talking about, the mind body, spirit connection,
Mhm.
right? We have to serve it all. It all works interconnectedly. And if we don't
Mhm.
take care of it all, there something's gonna eventually give.
Mhm. I think that car analogy is so fantastic. It really gives like a good visual
Mm.
and is just a reminder of how we do need to have that self-care and take care of our well-being, and
Mhm.
we're going to function so much better if we are balanced and we're filled up. So what would be some ways that you would encourage a mom to fill up one of those tires? If there was air loose in one of them, what would you do?
Well, I feel like what happens with, especially new moms, is we're very sleep deprived. So
Mhm.
when someone says that they will come over and watch the baby so you can sleep, take them up on it. You know,
Yeah.
like, somebody says, they'll bring over a casserole, whatever it is. People offer,
Mhm.
and what, in my experience, people don't offer unless they genuinely mean it. They genuinely mean it because we're not going to put ourselves out there unless we want to follow through with something like that. So
Mm.
take them up on that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's an easy way. The other component would be, um, it's important to take care of our stuff. And what I mean by that is we bring a whole backpack full of stuff into our relationships, into raising our children, if we haven't healed that.
Mhm.
I carried a pretty heavy backpack, so shame and guilt, those
Mm.
things that I started looking at how many years. I mean, some of those things were carried around for a really long time, like 30 years.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so it's really around forgiveness. So one of the things that I say I'm an expert at is doing forgiveness work, because I spent so much time really forgiving others and forgiving myself.
Mm.
Because that was the crucial piece, right? Because can you forgive yourself? And that, I believe, is one of the hardest pieces of it. So, forgive themselves, take other people up on helping with their family, um, ride shares, one other mom, takes
Carpool.
a day, you take a
Yeah.
day, carpool, right? I mean, that's awesome. The other thing is, I wanted to let my kids be involved in everything. We didn't have, a lot of that opportunity growing up, because everything costs money, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that wasn't available for us. And so I wanted to have my kids have everything. I wanted to have them all. I wanted to, and then I started to realize, um, I don't see my kids. I don't
Oh.
see them because they're always gone,
Mhm.
like they're always running and they're always
Mhm.
going, and we want them to be independent.
Mhm.
And, we want to spend time with them, because how else do you help have influence on them?
Mhm.
So maybe saying no, right?
Ooh.
Or
Yeah.
having like a limit, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Boundaries.
it can be a lot. Right? Just a good, healthy boundary around, how often, right? How many sports we can do in one season.
Mm.
Not how many activities we can do in one season.
Mhm.
So that's advice that is very much a learned experience. The other thing is is to let them, um, if they forgot their lunch,
Yeah.
they might have to eat the lunch at school. If they
Yes.
forgot their homework, natural and logical consequence of forgetting your homework. You're going to put it in your
Mhm.
backpack the night before.
Mhm.
Helping them establish some, um, you know, habits, right? Helping them establish some habits for themselves, and doing those things and setting them up for success. Other components, just spiritually, find people that you connect with, genuinely
Mm.
connect with it. Maybe if it's not a church, that it's a spiritual group, whatever it is for you, get in nature.
Mhm.
um, Going out into nature and um, having your feet in the ground, picking up on the electromagnetic component of the
Grounding.
earth and letting it ground
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I mean, honestly, I had a question over the weekend. Somebody asked me, what was my favorite toy, and it was to be outside. My brother and I were outside all the time,
Mm.
running, jumping, climbing, getting into mischief, whatever it
Mhm.
was. But so, anyways, those are just kind of like, some of them, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, you're
Yep.
putting good food into your tank. I'm like, would you put crappy gas in your gas tank?
I know. Yeah.
But, right? Breakfast is a donut. I'm thinking that's not a good way to start out.
Yeah, I like to use the racehorse analogy, right? Like, would you feed a racehorse
Yeah.
crappy food? Well, not if you want him to win the race. So why are we feeding ourselves bad things and too much alcohol and too much caffeine and not enough water and not enough fresh food, whole
Yeah.
foods, things like that. So all those were
Sure.
great. As you were speaking, I was kind of just like feeling it, emotionally in my body and seeing how it felt and thinking about how it even applies to me. And I'm past the baby stage. Like I'm like, oh, I don't need help
Yeah.
with the issues like this, or having like someone come help me so I could take a nap. But how else could I need help and or get help? And I thought the carpool was great. That's something I do a lot. But the one thing I really loved what you said was about connecting socially. I think that is so important, and just having it your group of people,
Hmm.
and having it be whether it's girlfriends that are the parents of your kids, or these people other places and they're different ages, whatever that might be. But just having that support network, I think, is so important. I know there's a lot of
Hmm.
moms, and a lot of moms are great about that. Others are not so great about it. A lot of them are isolated, they're
Hmm.
locked in, or they will go to school pickup and they'll say hi to a few people, but they never really open up. They're not vulnerable. And I think that that's something that I know I miss a lot, because I have my group of people that I'm really vulnerable with. I share everything and I'm very open. And then
Hmm.
there's the moms where, we just want to be closed up and look like we're all put together and look like everything's fine and not really share. And
Yeah.
that's fine and understandable. We don't want to just go around spilling our guts to every person we meet, right? Like there
Everybody.
has to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
limit to
Yeah.
that. But knowing that we do have some people that we can
Hmm.
rely on and that are supportive and that make us feel good. I love the nature stuff. I absolutely love that. Getting out in the fresh air in the sun. I think that is so fantastic. So those are all really great tips. Like I loved them all, like everything that you said. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit and get into some of like that was fun. Like I like talking about that, but I want to get into
Yeah.
some of like the really like heavy stuff that people can't get elsewhere. Like this is why I have this show, because they can get some real tools and resources and support just by listening to this. So I have my own questions, but I see we did get a question that came in the chat from someone, and she said, "What is one way to assist in forgiving yourself?"
Mm. Okay. So it's a process of journaling.
Mm.
So what you're going to do is you're going to write out um, all the different names that for the first portion of it is where you write all the different names of the different people that come immediately. It's like a rapid fire writing, right? So you're going to write, 30 different names that immediately pop to your head of like people that you need to forgive. What was so interesting the first time I did this is how far back it went.
Oh,
I think
really?
it was like maybe 4. Yeah, and so it's pretty interesting when you're just sitting down and like, I forgive so and so for doing this like in kindergarten, or something, right? You don't realize you're carrying that in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's a whole process that you go through in writing out that, I lovingly forgive them, release them. And then the second component of it is in the evening part of the day, you're going to write out um, that you lovingly forgive yourself, and all the names that are you're used for, that are used for you. So like for me, I had nicknames as a child, or it might be mom or mama, or my husband calls me baby, or whatever, right?
Mm,
Whatever it was, all the different names that I have assumed for myself over the years, that I lovingly forgive and release myself also. And it's a process that you go through, and it's over a period of time. So you do it in the morning and you do it over at night, and then you do it for 7 days, and we're looking at
mm,
releasing ourself. And the reason because when we carry all of that inside of us,
mhm.
it causes health issues,
Oh, I believe that.
um, right? Because that goes into that stuffing and that suppressing. So,
Mhm,
not being able to forgive ourselves, we're carrying around a burden we don't need to be carrying around. Because what's so interesting is that we will keep ourselves on the hook for something that happened 30 years ago, that somebody else has that person who we think we need, that we did something to,
mhm.
they're not even thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not even on
Right?
their
So this
radar.
is
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's not something that, you ever need. In fact, I like to burn it. I just burn
Oh,
it and I allow
okay.
it to be released, and, because that really it's a conversation between you and your creator. It's like, "Please forgive me.
Mhm,
I did these things I need to be forgiven for." At least I
mhm.
believe that. And
Mm.
and release it, and release it. So every time it goes up in flames, I'm like,
Like,
"Bye-bye."
yeah. Wow. I'm really curious about that process. Is there any benefit to going to the person or people if they're available in your life to have a conversation about that? Or would there be like, would that be good? Or what do you think?
I think it depends on the situation.
Mhm.
Often what I like to ask for is, what is the benefit of that? Because is that your ego talking? Is it the ego that wants, I
Mm,
need to be forgiven? Is that coming from a space of that? Or, can I seek forgiveness, do it through the creator, do it through the source, through energy exchange,
mm,
as opposed to, necessarily maybe going to somebody. If you believe that it's a situation where there can be reconciliation,
okay.
and I guess that would be a choice, right? That you could make. But I would really weigh the pros and cons and ask yourself, really, is this ego talking, or is this coming from my soul that I would like to have forgiveness for
Mhm,
this?
mhm. Yes, and just kind of see, like, what would the benefit of that be, kind of explore that a little bit
Yes.
before you acted on
Hmm.
everything, because the last thing you'd wanna do is maybe
Hmm.
cause more harm or more damage, maybe kind of
Right.
assess and see where you are, and that's a great answer. So,
Hmm.
okay, so the next thing I was thinking of, you mentioned way much earlier in the conversation about, childhood trauma and how you have this kind of knowledge about 0 to 8 or early childhood. And so can you
Hmm.
kind of just explain, like, what does that even, I mean, I know in my own definition what, like, I think that means, because I think there's the extreme trauma, like we think of like a major incident, whether it's a fire or a divorce or abuse or this or that. But there's also little like micro traumas, right? Like small things that build up that most people don't consider trauma, but
Hmm.
it's just like, it could be, oh, I got embarrassed in front of my class when I was doing show and tell when I was in
Hmm.
first grade. But
Hmm.
things like that built up, built up, built up, and it never got like resolved. And so it becomes trauma, right? So, like, when you talk about trauma,
It can.
which type are you talking about, or is it everything?
I'm specifically addressing big T. So, when we're talking about adverse childhood
Mm-hmm.
experiences, this was a study that was done in the 90s. This particular study was done by two doctors, Doctors Felitti and Anda,
Okay.
and they actually like they were working in a weight loss, situation. They were doing a weight loss study,
Mm.
and happened to trip over. Um, Finding this information, and then they dug deep. Um, so what we're looking for, and I have a list of the questions here. So, prior to your 18th birthday, did a parent or an adult in the house often swear at you,
Mhm.
insult you, put you down, humiliate you?
Mhm.
Question number 2, did a parent or other adult in the house often push, slap, grab, throw things at you, injure you, ever hit you so hard that you were injured?
Mhm.
The third one, did an adult or person 5 years older than you ever inappropriately touch you, in any sort of sexual manner?
Mhm.
For Did you often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought that you were important or special? Um, did you often feel that you didn't have enough to eat or had to wear dirty clothes or that there was no one there to protect you?
Mhm.
Were your parents too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to
Mhm.
the doctor? Um, Number 6 is, were your parents ever separated or divorced? 7 was your mother or stepmother pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had things thrown at her? Was she ever, physically harmed
Mhm.
in front of you, repeatedly threatened? Um, Number 8, did you ever live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Number 9, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? And number 10, did a household member go to prison?
Mm.
So, with adverse childhood experiences, what that does is um, they use the analogy of having the bear live in your cave. So, our
Mhm.
bodies are built in, fight or flight, right? Or
Mhm.
freeze or fawn. Um, but when the bear lives in your cave, there's no escaping. And so the
Yeah.
body is in perpetual fight or
Mhm.
flight. So what
Yeah.
happens is the body is flooded with cortisol and flooded with adrenaline. And when we are
Mhm.
flooded with those hormones, though the long-term exposure to that causes health repercussions that may not be seen until down the
Mhm.
line, or in children you might see. They might be asthmatic, right? They might be having night terrors.
Mhm.
Um, they might be bedwetting. There's different things like that that can happen.
Mhm.
You were talking like a little bit of like the microaggressions. The second part of this that they look at is, was the child in foster care?
Mm.
Um, did they experience harassment or bullying at school? Um, did the child live with a parent or guardian that died? Um, was the child separated from their primary caregiver through deportation or immigration?
Mhm.
Um, was a child had did a child ever have a serious medical procedure or a life-threatening illness? Did they hear something violent or something awful happen within their neighborhood? Because there's kids that walk to school that it's not safe,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, was your child treated badly because of race, sexual orientation, place of birth, disability, religion? I mean, you and I talked about, sexual orientation. It's like one of the highest reasons why kids commit suicide,
Mm.
because they're being bullied
Mhm.
for it.
Mhm.
So these things feed into it, all goes to our sympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
right? So they become dysregulated.
Mhm.
And when our bodies are dysregulated, we choose things to numb. What happens is the more we use of that substance to numb or to feel good, to release a dopamine to our brain, because that's what
Mm.
food or drugs or alcohol or shopping or that's what's happening.
Mhm.
Um, every time you do it, it it lessens the receptivity to the
Mhm.
receptor. So the more you do it, it wears it down and it wears it down. Then you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So um, exploring this is important because we have the ability within us.
Mhm.
This is where neuroencoding comes in,
Right.
and it's been super helpful in the ramp technique that I use for the subconscious. Because from birth till 8 years old, we're a pretty blank canvas. We don't have the prefrontal cortex of the brain developed yet.
Mhm.
And so everything gets stored in the subconscious brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
What they see, what they smell, what they taste, what they touch. It could be from TV, it could be from music, it could be from the neighbors, it could be from kids at school, but it all gets stored in there. So you may not have a conscious awareness of
Right.
what's in there,
Yeah.
right? but it's wreaking havoc on your health.
Mhm.
Um, that's what happened to me. Just actually, a few months ago, I went to the doctor, and she's like, "How's your stress level?" And I'm like, "I don't have stress. I work for myself. I love what I do. My life is fantastic. I have an amazing husband. I have 3 beautiful children. My life is
Yeah,
great."
yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, that's really interesting. That's not what your blood work says.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, what? What? Yeah. So I was a little shook, right?
Mhm.
But there's so much that we can do, right? So when we start to heal these things within our body, meditation, because we can grow our telomeres. That's a whole, I could get
Oh,
into
yeah.
the whole science of
I
all
love
of that,
hearing
but
that,
we're
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right. But things like meditation, just just sitting in nature, right?
Mhm.
Because sitting in nature is a form of meditation.
Right.
Again, connecting with people. Our skin was made to be touched.
Mhm.
We were made and wired as human beings to connect.
Yes.
um, I cannot stress the importance of that enough, because isolation is another killer of people,
Mm.
right? So um, getting into, I could talk forever about adverse childhood experiences and
Mhm.
the importance of it. For me, healing, obviously a personal journey, and then also healing um, the trauma itself. I don't go deep with people. I'm not here to dig up all the old stuff and make you relive
Mm.
things.
Okay.
We have an awareness of it. Let's take it and we're going to lessen the vibration of it,
Mm.
and give it a little different look, and help you move forward in your life.
Mm.
And that to me has been such a rewarding component of it, is being able to see people step into things and out of um, situations where they didn't think it was ever possible to have a different life, right? So I draw a circle. You live in this circle,
Mhm.
and all the people in your circle are the same, right? Because that's your community.
Mhm.
Until somebody jumps out of the circle, steps a toe out of the circle, right? We don't know life looks any different. How do I know it looks any different? If this is the way everybody around me behaves. But now all of a sudden I put my toe out there and I see there's a whole different world out there.
Mm.
And I want more of that. And I want
Mhm.
more of that. Right. And then my hope is that everybody within the circle is going to take a look at me and go, wow, look at her. Look at her and how she changed her life. I
Mm.
want that.
Yeah.
What did she do?
Yeah.
What did she do?
Right.
It's if that's possible for her, if she can come from, you know, I had two paths before me, Laura.
Mhm.
What I was told was this, I knew my dad drank a lot, got to be in my teen years and started to understand the word alcoholic. I was able to separate the being from the behavior. I see
Mhm.
that alcohol now in a whole different light,
Mhm.
right? Um, or my mom, who really struggled with A, dealing with that, and then B, you know, was it mental illness or was it a mental health issue because she wasn't living the life of her dreams, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't out with friends. She wasn't allowed to have like, there's so much that goes into that, right? So looking at
Mhm.
those were my two paths. And
Mm.
it was like, but like I wanted more. I
Mhm.
wanted I wanted different.
Mhm.
I saw the out, and the secrets that we keep as women, the secrets that we keep stuffing down, the shame, the guilt, the jealousy, the envy, um, the secrets that we keep from, what's going on within the walls of our house.
Mhm.
Um, we stuff them down and we stuff them down and we stuff them down, and then they perpetuate themselves as illness. So
Mhm.
I'm here to blow the lid off all of that. And like you said, we can't go out and I'm gonna be having open conversations. I have a podcast coming. It's called The Secret
Oh,
Keepers,
awesome.
and this is about having open conversations around these are the secrets I kept. This is what I believed. This is how I
Mm.
healed. Right? It's not just kind of a open up like grumble session. It's gonna be like this is the path
Yeah.
I took.
Right.
to heal this
Mm,
with, whatever was in me. So,
mhm,
anyways,
mhm.
so I'm
Wow,
sorry.
that was no,
You probably got
yeah,
all
that
kinds
was
of
a lot,
questions.
and I, so appreciate you sharing all that, and I'm a visual person, so as you talk, I imagine all these things, and, the ACE, I know it's called ACE, what is it? The Adverse Childhood
Hmm.
Experiences.
Different experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that, and I, relate that to the education that I have. I have a master's in education and health and wellness, so I did study
Hmm.
that a lot, and how that does affect not just like you're kind of talking about it in the context of being an adult, right? The trauma as an adult, but
Hmm.
like in my mind, I'm thinking of still the kid. I'm still thinking of the teenager and how they're trying, or younger kid, elementary, middle,
Hmm.
high, going to school, and they're trying to learn, and you can't
Hmm.
learn if your limbic system is on fire and all your,
Right.
your prefrontal cortex is like
Hmm.
offline, and you're in that fight or flight stage, like you're saying, like,
Hmm.
the sympathetic nervous system is just going berserk, right? Your memory, your retention, your learning is just not available. And so then what happens is that,
Yeah.
like that, and I think I might be veering off track a little bit, but it just feels really important right now, is then what happens is those kids, if they start to make bad grades or they get diagnosed with a learning disability or anything
Hmm.
like that, then
Hmm.
they're kind of like labeled as the trouble children or the problem
Oh,
children,
yes.
and they're getting like,
Hmm.
detentions, and they're getting caught for
Yes.
substances and drugs, when
Hmm.
really what they need is something before that. They need some healing, they need some care,
Mm.
they need the bear to be out of the cave, like you said. Like, I love that
Yep.
analogy, and we
Hmm.
can't control their feelings, we can't take the bear out of the cave, but what we can do is
Hmm.
care for the kids that are available to us. So that's why I'm really
Yeah.
passionate about helping, teenagers. And I don't specifically deal with trauma, although I'm
Hmm.
capable of it. That's not specifically what I do. But if that is a struggle that
Hmm.
someone's dealing with, I'm like, well, I want to help them, because then it's setting up, like you said, like this path on your life. Like, right, you have this path, and you have this path, or you have this
Yeah.
path. And it's like, I try to get to the path as soon as possible. I work with, I've had as young as
Hmm.
a 9-year-old client, but I typically 13 to, 16 or 19. I have some college kids that are clients, and I try to get them on the right path. So by the time they get to adulthood, right, they're not as in that kind of painful space, so to speak, like whatever that is, like the
Right.
hard
Hmm.
space, the one that they're still that
Hmm.
fight or flight, everything that you're talking about. So, I think it's
Yeah.
awesome, because you and I, we both help people, and we both want to heal people, and we both want to give hope to people. And I love the analogy of the toe outside of the circle. It's like, oh, then other people can see that that's possible. Like, all you need to get one little toe, and I want a better life, and I can be like this and be an inspiration to people. So I feel like what you're
Hmm.
doing is beautiful, and it's fantastic. And Cindy is saying, hello, you two
Hmm.
magnificent, beautiful women. Oh my gosh, it's so great to hear from you. Oh, we have a hello, ladies. How fun. There's lots of people saying hi. I love it. Oh, lots of emojis, lots of hearts and fire. Yay. Oh, okay. I love it. So we got to rename your upcoming podcast, The Secret Keepers. So that's so cool. I didn't actually know that about you. I'm really excited. I can't wait to find out about
Hmm.
that. Okay, so man, I know I kind of jumped off track there for a second. I just
Yeah.
threw the plane out the window, but I get excited, when I hear what you're doing, and I feel like
Yeah.
you are such an awesome example, because you've like lived this life, you've experienced it,
Hmm.
and now you're on the other side. Like, you've completely transformed yourself, and so therefore you're able
Yeah.
to help, women. So, I guess that would be
Yeah.
kind of, I know we're getting close on time. Like, I know in the past you did work with kids, but who do you typically work with now? Like, what
Hmm.
is your ideal client that you do work with?
Mm. I have an umbrella. I have an umbrella. So women, moms, teens.
Mhm.
So um, right, I spent 15 years working with kids in the school, and I just can't say it enough, right? All it takes is one adult, one trusted adult to
Mm.
change the trajectory
Yes,
of a
yes,
child, right? And
I know.
that's all it
Yeah.
takes, right? So one, and we can be that one, right?
Mhm.
And as a mom, we can really have um, such an impact. And I feel like if we could just band together and lock arms, because we're protective of our children,
Mhm.
and you know through all walks of life, even even through seeing, women that, have gone through substance abuse, um, it's not that they don't love their kids, it's that they don't love themselves,
Mhm.
and so having that understanding really, it gives you a different perspective, right? So, um, I think it is important, to get the woman, if we can, ideally, this is what I see, right? If we can help a young woman heal prior to having children,
Yes.
that to me, high five, high five, high five, high
I
five,
know.
right? So what you're doing with teenagers is amazing, right? Because that's so important, right?
Mhm.
So, because from that epigenetic component of it
Mhm.
too, right? We can pass some of this stuff on. Um, so ideally, that
Mhm.
would be right the place to start. But working with women to help other women to show that we can heal this. We can lock our arms together. We can say, you know what? Um, I used to hear, "Not my kid, not my problem," but it is our kids.
Mhm.
They are our problem, all
Mhm.
of them. Even if
Mhm.
they aren't biologically yours,
Mhm.
we have an impact, and I just feel like we can come together and just tackle this. So it excites me. It sets my soul on fire because I believe we're coming from such a loving space that this healing we started, start it with the women, start it with the kids, like it's just it's so beautiful to me.
I love it. I love what you just said. It got me goosebumps because I feel like moms are the most untapped resource on this planet.
Oh, goosebumps. Oh,
I know, right? There's
yes,
so
yes.
much power
Info.
that we
Mhm.
have. We have so much
Mhm.
power and we don't know
Mhm.
it or we don't use it or right or we don't
Mhm.
know how. Like we just don't know what we don't know. And I think like I'm starting to see, the way I've impacted my clients, who are headed on this different
Mhm.
trajectory or, I look back at my own path and I thought, "Oh man, if only I had had a coach." When I was
Mhm.
13 years old and I was so insecure, so critical of
Mhm.
myself, and I brought that negative dialogue, log that I had in my head to my adulthood, and I brought that to a marriage, and all the unhealthy stuff, and I'm like,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
can be. So like I feel like we're like like we are the emotional mothership, of this. I just made that up. Right? Like we're
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, in a
Yeah.
family, typically, the moms are, the head of the household as far as emotions go,
Mhm.
and we can be leaders in this. Like we can help people.
Yeah.
We can reach out, and like you said at the very beginning of this, you said there's no like a negative emotion doesn't mean it's a bad emotion. Like for me, you said it's just information, and I agree. It's just
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
it's a signal that something needs attention. That's all we know that needs. Okay,
Right.
so we are just about out
Yeah.
of time. So, Corinne, how can people find you after today? Because you are just like literally
Oh,
a wealth of knowledge. I feel like I'm just getting so excited at the end here because we're running out of time and I want to hear more.
yeah. I
So,
know, I know.
how can people find you after today?
Or they can find me on Instagram at it's Corinne underscore Zuleger. Or my website is just it's CorinneZuleger.com.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, last thing, any last, like if you had to give one piece of advice to a mom who's struggling today, right
Mm.
now, what could be that one thing she could do?
I want her to look in the mirror. I want her to look eyeball to eyeball. I want her to take her hands in her face in her hands, and I want her to say her name. So, Corinne, I love you, and
Mm,
smile.
mhm.
Then
Yeah,
celebrate it. Pat your back, shake your booty, put some
yeah.
good music on, and shake it around. Yeah,
Mhm,
it just
mhm.
start there. Remind yourself, I am the love of my life, and it
Mm,
starts here, right? We
mhm,
want to set that example for our children. We want to show them healthy ways to deal with our emotions, right? Because they're there, they're real. We get to acknowledge them.
mhm,
Am I going to go for a walk? Am I going to put on some good music? Am I going to color? Am I going to meditate? Am I going to cook some healthy food? What can I do? Get out in nature, take a nice warm bath. What can I do? Except, besides blow up and, you know, lose my cool, right?
Right, exactly, because that is exactly the
Mhm.
transformation that we need to be from, like, victims of our state that we're in or our situation or our
Correct.
circumstances to victors
Yeah.
and leaders and, having that power back that we
Yes.
need to heal
Yes.
heal
Yes.
ourselves and be such a
Yes.
great example and role model for our kids. And, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
it. Thank you so much, Corinne, today
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sharing
You're welcome.
everything and being so vulnerable and open and sharing your story because I know there's
Mhm.
so much more to it we didn't get to touch on today, but you're awesome.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
And so just to
Yeah.
finish
I love you
everything
too.
up, the show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. All right, Corinne, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.